This episode contains discussions of mental health challenges, including references to suicide. If you or someone you know needs support, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always someone ready to listen. Eno thought he was just a helping mate. Turns out he started the Truckie movement no one saw coming. I'm Shane Jacobson, and this is How You're Travelling, a podcast from Healthy Heads. In this episode, I'll be talking, as I said, to Eno, a long-haul driver who turned pain into purpose. Not many people can say they've done that. One man, one convoy, and a truckload of heart. Eno, how are you, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Well, mate, I'm good. I've got to ask. We start every show with this one. How are you travelling? We've got to ask.
Yeah, no, I'm actually travelling pretty good. No, we have our good days, we have our bad days, and yeah, no, we had a pretty good Easter and bit of time off, spent some time in the garden, and you know, with the wife and the chickens and the dogs. So yeah, life's pretty good at the moment.
Chickens and the dogs, they get along well, I assume. That wasn't a terrible story, was it? It went fine? Ended well?
Well, funny you say that because
Yep.
the chickens and the dogs get on really well, but but the but the young chicks, the ones that escaped from the chicken pen,
Yep.
didn't get on so well with the dogs.
I've got chickens and dogs. They get along well. Do you know which one came first? God, the world wants to know the answer to that.
The chicken or the dog?
Yeah. Now, mate, firstly, I do want to say at the top of the episode, thank you so much for coming on. You've got quite a story surrounding you and that kicked you off and the journey that you've been on. Mate, do you mind sharing with us your journey to do with your father and how you've got to where you are now and the help that you've been to so many in the mental health space in the world of trucking?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I'm 49 years old now. I sort of first realised, or not sort of realised, first sort of knew that I had a few mental health issues back when I was about 18. Um, my he was my stepdad, but I called him my dad because he was one who brought me up and made me from a boy to a man. And not long after I turned 18, he actually passed away. And Dad and I, we used to do everything together. We'd go motorbike riding. We spent because we lived in a rural environment. We were quite isolated, and and Dad and I done everything together. We went rabbit shooting, checking the irrigation on the citrus farm, all that sort of stuff together. And then when I ended up losing my dad, um, tables turned a little bit, and everyone said, "Well, you're the man of the family now. You got to be strong. You got to, look after your mum and look after your sister." And my sister's 5 years older than what I am, and what was really sort of pushed into me is that that you can't cry, you can't let your emotions flow. You got to be strong to support your family, and that was yeah. I thought that's what you got to do to be. I'm the man of the house now, and I actually. Like I was doing things pretty tough. I lost my best mate. You know,
Mm.
I lost my fishing partner, the guy who I went motorbike riding with. Everything that I pretty much did was with my dad. I'd get home from school, I'd have to um I'd have to park my motorbike at the shed and then go help Dad out in the farm. That was my life. That was sort of taken away from me when Dad died, and when I wanted to talk to my family, like, and especially say my mum, everything sort of got turned back onto me. And this is nothing against my mum. Was like I wanted to tell mum how I felt about how I lost my best friend, how I've lost my dad. But then the conversation would get turned, and it's about how mum lost her soulmate and her husband. Um, and at that age, which is what I'm 49 now, 18, I was 18. It's a long time ago. Like there wasn't a lot of options for me to go seek help. I had one really good friend who really helped me out, and he listened to me, and would get together and we'd skate and play footy together, all that sort of stuff. But apart from that, I had no support. So then I had to at 18 put on this face of being the man of the house, and I didn't know how to be the man of the house.
Mm.
Um,
Well, I assume it's not a role you'd played before that day or that time.
no, no, exactly right. And then things got all a bit too much. Um, One night I had an argument with my sister, and things got quite tough, and I didn't know where to turn. I had no thought of. I thought I can't go on any longer, so I decided to um I gave all my personal belongings to a homeless guy that I found on side of the street, and I decided to try and take my own life. Um, Luckily enough, the homeless guy who I gave my wallet to and all my belonging like belongings I had on me, he actually watched me, and he actually called the ambulance, and he pretty much saved my life. And then after I had to go spend a quite a sort of lengthy time in a mental ward at the local hospital, which back then it was just a lot of sort of dosed up on medication, and just answering questions that the doctors wanted you, or you're given the answers the doctors wanted you to hear, just so I could get out of there and keep moving on. So that's when we sort of realized, well, when I realized, then I've got, like I've got a few mental health issues, and over the years, I've had to sort of adjust my life to work around those issues, which I did. I left Majura, where I was born and bred, and got out and just started my own life. Got away from my family, and just tried to create. You know, I was actually quite lucky. My best friend in Majura, he actually rang me up and goes, "I've bought a camper van. Let's go for a drive." And I said, "Where we going?" And he goes, "Cairns." And I went, "How long's that going to take?" And he goes, "Don't know." And so pretty much, my best mate Shane and myself just decided to pack up and just go for a drive to Cairns. Had no idea where we're going, what we're doing, when we're going to come home. Um, and it was probably the best decision that I ever made. Um, it was funny. We pulled up at this one caravan park not long into our journey, and I woke up one morning. I opened up the door of this little shitty van that we had, and just seeing the grass, the ocean, and I was like a dog. You know when you let your dog out of the car when you're going for a walk down the beach or something, and it just runs around in circles, not
Yep.
sure where it's
Sniffs every
going.
tree, wheeze on every branch.
Yeah, that's exactly like what I was like. And I've just gone, you know what? I'm free. I just had a real loaded left off my shoulders, and that was a life changing moment. Um, yeah, I was yeah. So yeah, that was all good, and had a really good job after that, and then yeah, sort of life continued on.
the I mean, there's so many things to talk about in that story, and mate, I want to thank you for sharing it, because I can see that that's not easy for you to share. To say that stuff out loud, it's hard. They're hard words for your ears to hear come out of your own mouth, if that makes sense, because it's something
Correct.
that you still clearly struggle with in some way. But here's the amazing thing out of that story. That, well, there's a few bits there. Number one, I'm glad that there's a character called Shane in that story that helped you out, mate, because that makes me feel good. Shane's
Yeah.
do good things. Connection is something that comes up a lot in the when we're talking about mental health, and we've got Arthur, who's an expert that we refer to, and he spoke a lot about connection.
The biggest contributor to positive mental health makes up about 48% of a person's mental health and well-being is their connections. The more connected we are, the more balanced we are.
We're talking to friends and family.
Yeah. That friend that makes me laugh, to the stupid jokes I can say, to others that I can share a bit more about my life with. So that connection piece is so important. We know the trucking industry, warehousing as well, the roles they perform are very isolated.
Yeah.
So that's a risk factor. So you're already going into a role that isolates you, long trips, and you've got moments of connection, equally in warehousing, pickers, box 458, 782, and that's all I'm hearing all day. So it's just recognizing those are risks, but how do we make sure, and how does each individual look at creating more connection, whether that be ringing a family member when they are on the road, or a friend, peers, stopping at the local truck stop, maybe together, knowing a couple of people on the journey, spending that time 20, 30 minutes. It doesn't mean you have to spend hours. It's that 10, 15, 20 minutes of connection with someone.
Out of that story, and people, often people say to me, and we've spoken about it on a number of podcasts about the fact that people don't know what to say, or if someone is struggling, they don't know if they have the skills to help them out. What I love about your story, and it sounds weird, there's something in it to love, but a homeless person, you walked over and gave all of your things to a person that had nothing, to leave yourself with nothing to go and end your life. And that person saw where you were at in your life, and in that moment called an ambulance and turned that whole thing around for you. And they say knowing that someone may need help is in fact the biggest step that someone needs to take to assist someone that has mental health. To literally, if you say to someone, which we did at the top of this podcast, how you traveling, or are you okay is the popular term, or as we say, how you traveling, that guy didn't even ask you that. He just noticed you weren't traveling okay, and he called an ambulance, and without a doubt, that was the start of the rest of your life. That was going to stop at that moment. It was the start of a new life for you. And all he did, not all he did, thank goodness he did, but was he noticed you needed help. And then from that moment, you found all the light through a mate going, oh my God, obviously I imagine Shane knew that your mate Shane knew you were struggling. Yep. And what a great idea. Let's jump in a shitty little van and head to Cairns. And as he said, when you said, how long is it going to take? I don't know, mate. And at that point, there was a lot of stuff you wouldn't have known in your life other than the pain you were feeling. You're like, okay, let's just get in the van. Let's just head somewhere, What an incredible story for people to think. And again, thank you for sharing it. But the reason I say thank you so much is because I think it gives so much hope to so many people to go, no matter how bad it gets, you can rebuild from there. I mean, not only were you willing to end a beautiful life, but you literally in your final moments, you were giving up everything you had to a stranger. So talk about a low point and what a starting point. But how thrilling it is that all these years later, at 49, you're sitting here with me. And, by all accounts, mate, I've only been talking to you for a little while, but from what I know about, the research that's been done on you, is you're a ripping bloke. And the reason I get to know that is you're continuing to live a life, mate. So what a great story. So I imagine you've had to tell many people your story many times, and to see that it still affects you the way it does. It won't matter how many times you get to tell it, it'll still affect you. This has spurred you on to try and help others. We're not for a moment suggesting you don't still have your struggles. Is it fair to say you still have days that everything's not going perfect for you?
Yeah, definitely. As I said, you have your good days and your bad days. So I pretty much once like I got traveling, I found a really perfect place to live. Lived in Bellingen, got married, had kids. All was going pretty well, but then unfortunately, marriage broke down. The black door, the black dog was knocking back at the door again. Yeah, so like I ended up moving to Sydney. Um, just trying to sort of get my life back together again for the second time, and I actually was in that position again where I've just gone, like life's getting a bit tough, second time round, and I actually I was sitting in a park in Sydney and contemplating what to do, and I actually picked up the phone and rang Lifeline, and I can still remember from this day on that conversation. I was alone. I was in a big city which I was scared of. I hardly knew anyone, and I was actually with a new partner. I really couldn't talk to her about how I was feeling, and I rang Lifeline, and I can still remember that voice of the lady on the phone, how warm and caring that voice was. And I actually, within 5 minutes of talking to the counsellor on the phone from Lifeline, realised that there are people out there who care. There is light in the tunnel. It was such an amazing phone call, and I've actually rang after that. Like I rang Lifeline line a few times, and they sort of helped me get back on track and realise that things aren't as bad as what I thought. Um, yeah, so like a big shout out to Lifeline there.
Yeah, here,
Um,
here.
but
Do you
yeah,
do
no,
you, do you remember much of when you're saying you remember the conversation? Do you remember the sort of things? A lot of people. I keep saying a lot of people want to know the kind of things they might have to say or do to people, or is it just the ear? We've been told that sometimes, and again, Arthur, our expert, said you don't have to know what to say. Sometimes you just have to be willing to listen. Is that fair to say that sometimes, like you've said straight off the bat, there was someone. There's a voice at the end of the phone who just showed to you, probably through the tone of their voice and maybe a few of their questions, that they cared? Or was it just the fact there was someone there to listen to you? You went, hang on a moment, someone is listening to me.
yeah, exactly right there, Shane. And funny enough, without me knowing, they actually made me answer my own questions. And I was talking to them, telling them how I'm going through, and then the way how they listened, the way how they spoke, as I said, I found myself answering my own questions.
It's been said in the past that the psychologist or psychology, when you're sitting in a session with a psychologist, that they do exactly that. What's happened to you? And you explain everything that happened because they don't know. And then
Yep.
they do actually say, how did all that make you feel? And you explain that all of that obviously made you feel bad, which is why you're here. And they go, can you understand why that would make sense that you would feel bad? And then you go through a few things that go, well, yeah, well, I've lost this and I've lost that. And they go, well, what do you plan to do from here? And before you know it, all they've done is make you speak everything that was in your head. And then you pay an invoice and you walk back out and go, hang on a moment, they were all my ideas.
Exactly right.
So, but it's interesting to hear you say that. But the great part is, or when I say great part, the interesting thing is you realise that in fact you had the answers for your question. Where do you
Yep.
find the light? There's people, the sad truth that you and I know, unfortunately, all too well. There's people listening to this podcast now, who are now where you were, and
Yep.
where we hope you aren't again. But you've been there twice, where you've got to a point of an absolute low. Where you can't imagine. You've mentioned the black dog, or your dark room in your mind, or whatever it may be for everyone, however they see it or feel it. So for the people who are listening right now going, I'm there, I'm where Eno was, I'm there right now. What would you say to them, or where are the moments that you found light?
Um, I don't know how I found the light. Especially the second time, and I don't know why or what made me think of it was I just called Lifeline. I've got no answers why I called them, or what even that idea came into my head. And I was sitting there and I just I rang the number, And yeah, it was it was a bloody good thing that I did. And don't ask me why I did it. Um, and that's why I think, look, we really need to get this information out a whole lot more, of the resources that we have, like Lifeline and the Black Dog, and there's so many resources out there, but no one really knows much about them.
You know, mate, with your permission, there's one story I'd love to hear from you, which is from Incredible Grief, something that you kicked off, that you wanted to start a small convoy as a tribute to a mate. Can you tell me that story? That's a heck of a story.
All right, we'll jump straight into that. What happened with that? I moved back up into Coffs Harbour, and I ended up I stopped driving interstate because I knew that with my mental health and where I was, driving interstate wasn't really the thing for me. I was actually lucky enough to get a job driving for an earth moving company, and I get to drive all the really big excavators around on the back of the trucks and take up two lanes of the highway and
Yeah, baby.
all that sort of stuff, which is really cool.
All at the cost of one rego plate too. You can take up 2 lanes and still only pay one lot of rego. Yeah.
Exactly right. Spot on there. But yeah, the company that I was working for, we had a guy who'd been with the company for 13, 14 years. His name was Mark. And when I first started there, he was the one who showed me how to fill out my timesheets. He's the one who showed me, where the wash bay was, how we fuel up the trucks. Like he was just one of those all round bloody good guys. He enjoyed his time off fishing, all that sort of stuff. And Mark and I, we had, for the short time I was there, I think I was only there for about 2 years. Mark and I had a really good friendship. And it was at the time when McDonald's had that monopoly thing going on, where and and like I'd turn up to work and I'd have like free French fries, and Mark would have this. So we're always swapping, in the mornings of who had what. And then there was the Friday afternoon. Mark and I were at the yard, and we swapped our Monopoly things, and we had a bit of a chat. And I said, "What do you have planned for the weekend?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Nothing out of the ordinary." Monday morning, I turned up to work, and Mark's truck was still parked up, and I went, "That's a bit strange, Like Mark's normally at work before I am, and I've gone off and was doing my things, and it was about 11 o'clock, and my boss rang up and asked me to come back to the yard. And I said, "Why? What's up?" He goes, "Just stop what you're doing. Come back. I need you to come back to the yard." And so I did. I got back there as soon as I could, and a couple of the other guys from work were there, and I said to Phyllis, "Mate, what the heck's going on, mate?" And he goes, "Mark's taking his own life." And I've gone, "What do you mean Mark's taking his own life?" And he goes, "Yeah, Mark's taking his own life." Um, the same feeling, the same emotion that I had was like when I found out that my dad passed away. I've just gone, it's but nah, nah, Mark wouldn't have taken his own life, and it was true. It was, yeah, and it was a really hard time for me because I know what it's like to be in that position, and I just couldn't believe it was Mark. There was no signs. There was no nothing. And,
And mate, you now know, having experienced it from, unfortunately, tragically from both sides, of feeling that bad yourself, is that you don't necessarily want everyone to know how you're feeling. And the other thing is that the people who are close to it are so good at masking it so often we can't spot it. And let me guess, you probably would have thought you of all people could have spotted it, yeah?
you're 100% there, Shane.
Yeah, and the proof is that there is no way of spotting it so often.
No,
So, sometimes there's signs. We know that there are signs, and you're supposed to look if people are breaking their habits. But I assume that's why you started that part of that story with. There you were, the Friday exchanging little McDonald's, little figurines and all that kind of stuff, and exchanging things that all seem very normal, yeah. And
yeah,
and to find out, in fact, inside his head, it wasn't normal, or it was on that Friday, but it wasn't moments later. That's it can turn on a dime, yeah.
yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. So during that week when we sort of started to get our heads around of what's going on. And Mark was one of those local truck drivers. He'd been driving locally in the Coffs area for like 20 years. Everyone knew Mark. And it was frustrating sometimes when I drove Mark's truck because I had to talk to everyone on the UHF. I had to wave to everyone. It was a pain in the ass to drive Mark's truck because everyone knew.
You're just getting two to that from everyone, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And a few people said, so what are we going to do for a bit of a send off for Mark? And I said, well, I'm not too sure because his family didn't want to have a funeral because of the situation. And I thought, you know what, let's just grab a few of his closest mates. We'll have a little convoy of about 15 trucks. We'll drive through Coffs Harbour. We'll come out to the yard, have a barbecue, a few beers, and have a send off to Mark. Yeah, that was all good. And then a few people rang up and said, I wouldn't mind being part of your convoy. And then a few more people rang up and said, yep, can I be part of the convoy? And then I actually had a young girl called Brooke. She actually reached out and said that her brother took his life a week after Mark. And he was an interstate truck driver. He was only 27 years old. And said, can we sort of be part of this convoy, just have like a bit of a joint send-off? And I said, yep, that's fine. And while I was planning things, I actually sort of reached out to Lifeline and said, "Look, I'm doing a convoy. I've got two mates that have taken their own lives. I wouldn't mind raising a bit of coin for Lifeline and just trying to make something, just a bit of awareness of what's going on in our community." So Lifeline jumped on board, and we started out with 15 trucks. Within 7 days, I had 120 people reach out to me and said, we want to be part of the convoy. So I went down to the police station and said, look, this convoy that I'm having with 15 trucks is now 120 trucks. What's my obligation? What do I have to, what's my legal responsibilities? And they pretty much said, well, if you don't break the law, there's nothing we can do. And I went, not a problem. So pretty much in 14 days, I've gone to having 15 trucks to 150. I think the final count was 157 trucks. I turned up to our starting point, and I've come around the corner, and there was trucks just lined up as far as you could see. The first thought I thought to myself is, I'm going to jail. What have I done here?
What have you created?
What have I created? And I've actually, I tell you what, so like the convoy was down the Pacific Highway. So it was a major part of the national highway between Brisbane and Sydney. And I was just going, well, it's too late now. Let's get it rolling. And honestly, it was just absolutely insane. I was we had Mark's truck up on back of a semi and all that sort of stuff. I didn't realise what I'd actually done until we started to come into Coffs Harbour, and where the overpasses were on the side of the road, there was cars pulled up. There was people with signs saying "Goodbye, Tom. Goodbye, Mark." Thank you signs. It was. I couldn't believe how the community came out in numbers. Just it was. You could not write a script. It was one of those things that was so unplanned. I had 14 days to organise this convoy, and the community just came out in absolute spirit. It was kids on side of the road waving. and this 15-kilometer convoy was just jam-packed on a national highway of just people, waving. It was you could never ever plan it.
And mate, dare I say it, it was people giving a shit. And I know
Yep,
I know it
exactly
sounds
right.
like a simple way to put it, but right then you would have discovered that, which is exactly why we've got this podcast, that there's so many drivers on the road who are alone in a cab, who feel very alone in the cab.
Yep.
And then may go back home and there's a loneliness that exists there for whatever reason it may be, circumstance or otherwise. And the thing that must have surprised, if not shocked you, and I know it still hits you emotionally because you probably still can't believe people do actually give a shit that much. The phone call, your comment about when you rang a Lifeline was you just found out through the tone of a woman's voice that someone actually cared. That, let me guess, someone gave a shit. And then after you lost a mate, you're going, well, you give a shit because you've lost a mate, and that's why. And then you find out that some other people go, actually, we're going to come with you because we give a shit. And then you ring some other people and go, the same thing happened to us and we really give a shit. And then you hit the road and you find out a lot of people do.
Yeah, exactly right.
And in your experience, because you've been in this game for a while, mate, and not only that, you've been, through your generosity of being able to share your story and be so honest about the struggles you've had and the circumstances you've witnessed and been a part of, like in the trucking space, which is your field of expertise, like, it's still the same, isn't it? There's still blokes out there who are afraid to speak up, who are probably afraid to appear weak, which of course it's not, to feel pain or struggle, or the black dog, as you said. It's the name that Winston Churchill gave it, the black dog. It's still out there, isn't it, mate? There's still mates out there on the roads, men and women who are driving, who find themselves lonely in a truck with thoughts that aren't working well for them and don't know how to get out. Yeah.
Yeah, totally correct, Shane. With the work that I've been doing with Lifeline and also uh, Healthy Heads, I hear stories of guys who have spent 15 years of driving interstate. They're on the road. They leave home on Sunday, get home hopefully Friday night, maybe Saturday morning, and they've only got a short window of where they're at home, to where they've got the stage where they feel uncomfortable about going home because there's so much of a change. So you're spending 5 days, 5 nights in a truck on your own, and then you get home, and there's so much a life change, and I know of a few guys who can't cope with that life change, so it's easier for them just to sleep in their truck over the weekend because it's just too, what's the word? Not too hard, but the routine, the change is just a bit overwhelming for them.
And I've heard it said by a couple of people that they feel like a stranger in their own home. Is that?
Yep.
What a terrible thing to know that they feel like the stranger in their home, that they realise there's a routine they're not a part of, and when they come home they feel like the meteor that crashed to Earth, like that they've disrupted the orbit of that family.
Exactly right. And the mother of my children, she actually said to me once, I'm a single mum from Sunday night through to Friday.
That's not her ringing now, is it, mate?
No. It's not, that was just my alarm.
That's all right. Just checking.
Yeah. So she's a single mum from pretty much Sunday night through to Friday night / Saturday morning, and then all of a sudden, Dad comes home and he wants to have fun with the kids and be the happy dad and do all that sort of stuff, and then he's gone again, and she's back to being the single mum running the house. And she did such an amazing job raising the kids, but that's pretty much how it is. And you come home and all of a sudden, like it was like last week, I left home and my son was 3 years old. I come home and he's 10 years old.
I've got to ask, is there a guilt associated with that? Not that there should be, but there is.
There is, yeah.
So when you're away, you're feeling the guilt, and when you're home, you're feeling guilty because you realise what you've missed. And is that one of the bigger pressures you would say for a lot of, especially for the interstate truckers and long haul truckers? Is that one of the biggest burdens?
Um, it is, yeah. I think that, you're trying to provide the best for your family, but end of the day, it's a really fine line of, like you're bringing the money in, you're doing a job that you love, but you tend to miss out on so much. You miss out on birthdays and anniversaries and all the small stuff where, where your family, like your wife and your children, really take that quite personally,
Right. Well,
if
mate,
you know what
one
I'm
thing,
saying.
yeah, yeah. Well, I do. I wish I didn't, but I do because heartbreaking to think that that's the pressure that you feel. So, question. So, the one thing I know, and you'll know this too, mate, is me talking for people who are the people who are on the road now listen to this, and we've got our warehouse workers that listen to some of these too. But to the drivers out there who are listening to this, who are gonna not want to hear it from me, but hear it from you because you know that space. What do you say to them if they're having these feelings? What do you say to them? You've been in this mental health space a little bit now and been doing great stuff. What are the first things you try and tell fellow drivers?
Um, Ask yourself, is it really worth it? End of the day, is there any other options? This is a decision I made to go work for a local company. Okay, it was a reduce in pay, but I got to spend more time at home. I got to spend to have like look at my chickens, my kids. I'm now playing. I'm 49 years old playing resis in AFL footy. I'm coaching under 16s kids, coaching the rep team. Um, look at your options. If things are making you that unhappy while you're at work, you need change.
And mate, if people want to know the kind of opportunities you've given people to hear your words, Bunnings, you do like toolbox meetings at Bunnings. Can you talk us through what that is you're doing? Because, mate, you're doing some. I know this is not supposed to be a brag fest about how grass I think you are, but just for a minute, you're doing some good stuff, buddy. So, tell us about what you're doing at Bunnings.
Okay, so I've actually since my last couple of convoys that I've done, I've become an ambassador for Lifeline here in the North Coast, and we've gone out and done a couple of toolbox talks. Stupid alarm! I'll start again. Um, and that's the joys of being a truck driver because your hours are always up and down, and you got alarms set for I don't know what time that alarm was set for, but anyway. Um, I have to get up at, I think I'm getting up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning and driving to Sydney. So, but anyway, back onto the story. Yeah, so I've been
No,
doing,
you're okay. It's okay for you to interrupt it with actually letting people know you're still behind the wheel. You still
still
got
behind the wheel.
arms
Yeah,
that throw you out of a bed, that throw you into a cab. Yeah.
yeah. So I've got a pretty much a 14 hour day tomorrow. Drive down to Sydney, unload, reload, and then come back home. Um, but where were we? We're going. Oh, that's right.
Bunnings.
Bunnings. Yeah. So we went and done a talk with Lifeline to all the men at Bunnings just to let them know what Lifeline's all about and how they can help and we had one of the crisis support workers there and then I got up and I told my story and and how I rang Lifeline and how it sort of changed my life around it. And there was this one young guy, he would have been probably about 25, 28, and he didn't have much interaction. He didn't ask many questions. He sort of just sort of sat there and I didn't think too much of it. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I'm in Bunnings. I went and got me sausage sandwich and done what I had to do at Bunnings. And this young kid came up to me and he stopped me and he shook my hand and he said, "Thank you." And I went, "What for?" And he goes, "Thank you for telling your story." He goes, "I've gone and got help." And I said, "Okay, so what have you done?" He goes, I listened to what you said and I went and seen a GP and I spoke to my GP exactly how I felt. And she's got me on this plan now where I get to see a counsellor. I've got 10 free visits for a counsellor, and he goes, just thank you. Like I didn't know where to go or what to do, but after hearing your story, he goes, there are other people out there in this predicament. And I said, there is, mate, and I didn't actually realise that, just talking to a group of Bunnings blokes, you know, changed a life sort of thing. Like I actually felt pretty touched about it, that this one young man, he was hurting and needed help, and my story and my conversation actually gave him the courage to pick up the phone and ring and look for help.
What a turnaround from where you were all those years before, mate, by handing all of your stuff over to a homeless person who recognised where you were. Then the journey you went on from there to losing a mate and then starting a convoy, to then getting to the point you're going to speak at a Bunnings car park and speak to people, to have someone else go, thank you. That it is, again, it's that you probably wouldn't have thought that it would have that direct an impact that quickly, but just sharing your story has someone go, again, the theme we keep coming back to, someone gives a shit, or hashtag, you're not alone.
Exactly right.
So what have you been doing? What are some of the stuff you've been rolling out?
Okay, so I've been doing a bit of stuff with Healthy Heads. I went down to Sydney as a guest speaker down to there. Since then, I've been invited to go to different other places, a lot like Ampol and BP, and do sort of similar toolbox talks, and just tell my story, and just do my thing. I've been doing the convoy. We're having another convoy again this year on the 27th of November, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. Basically, and it's a little bit funny, Shane. Like when I very first started the convoy back in 2022, I think it was. I had a interview on ABC Radio, right? And they told me that I couldn't say the word suicide, because
They told you couldn't say the word.
I couldn't say the word suicide. The fact of the whole copycat thing, and it's a little bit taboo and all that sort of stuff. And I'm going, well, hang on, this is what my story is about. Is about people taking their own lives, people suiciding. Um, and that was in 2022. But now I'm at the stage where I can go on ABC radio, or I can go on Triple M, and I can talk and I can say exactly the conversation that we're having now. And I really believe that it's all about education. Not trying to hide what the truth actually is. Um, and one of the biggest things that I'm trying to do is educate people. Educate workers, drivers, managers, all those sort of people, that we have to talk about this. So it's so important to talk. It's so important to try and connect with your friends, your workmates, your employees. Have these conversations. I'm now doing work with Are You OK for Are You OK Day. It's about starting that conversation. And I've always said that if you feel like that, or you can see that one of your friends or a workmate isn't himself, have that conversation. You don't have to be a psychologist. You don't have to be an expert. All you've got to do is be a pair of ears and listen. You don't have to have the answers shown.
No. Well, mate, you are, and I'm choosing these words carefully. You are living proof. You are literally living proof that you don't have to be a counsellor. A homeless person saw the situation you're in and turned things around for you, and then you went and spoke in a car park and you turned something around for someone else. Mate, it's incredible the work you're doing. It really is, and the the truth is, buddy, that I'm gonna do what I can here, but it's people like you that it's lived experience, and people like you who are so honest about what they've been through and about what they're feeling, and it's still so raw for you in so many ways, and you keep doing stuff like these convoys, mate. They're fantastic, because you know what they are. They're loud and they're proud. They're born out of grief, but what they do, good grief, it's fantastic, if you will. Please continue to do what you're doing. You are so making a difference. What we're trying to do here, you're already doing. What we're doing here on this podcast, you're already doing it actively, mate. So I very much look forward to seeing more of your convoys. And like I said, keep them loud, keep them proud. And again, mate, people will be. You're such a great spokesperson for it. And hopefully, mate, that there's some people listening here that have found something in what you've said. Number one, as we keep saying, they would go, you know what he was feeling because I'm there now. Hopefully hearing your story, they go, you know what, there must be a way out. I'm going to start looking for it. And they can obviously, we've got information where they can go to on our app that will be able to help them out. But just by you being on this show, mate, I'd love to think you've already done some of the heavy lifting for me. So thank you.
And, not a problem, mate.
And mate, before you go, now, Eno, we've got to have a bit of fun. No, that's good. It's good. Don't panic. It's
I'm getting worried now,
mate. Relax, it's good. It'll cost you a little bit of time, but it won't cost you a cent. It's just some questions, quick fire questions we've asked everyone. What really lets the air out of your tyres? Professionally or personally, it doesn't matter. What grinds your gears?
Okay, so what really annoys me, and this is going to be quite honest, is the amount of negativity about negativity that I hear on the UHF when I'm driving my truck on a day-to-day basis. So many people are just getting so angry on the UHF, and there's so many bad comments, and people just need to realise that, don't try and control the things that you can't control.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The traffic shit. We're going through school holidays, or you're driving through a school zone. You can't control the traffic. So don't jump on the UHF, especially as a truck driver. Don't jump on the UHF and start blowing up at people. Stop blowing up at caravanners. Stop blowing up. Hey, wind your window down. Enjoy your time. Because you can't control what the traffic's doing. And you're only making yourself worse, you're making yourself more angry by jumping on the UHF and blowing up at people. And
they turn it into ultra horrible frequency instead of just normal UHF, yeah?
Exactly.
They turn the high into horrible, yeah?
Exactly right. And then someone else will jump on and have a go at them, and then all of a sudden there's all this angry people on the UHF and going, well, the sun's shining, it's a beautiful day, just calm that I won't say F down, but yeah, just calm down and just relax a bit.
Yeah, calm the falafel down, yeah? Calm the fire truck down. Start with F,
exactly
ends in UCK. Right. If I put you in charge of all the roads in Australia tomorrow, what would you change first?
I would have more good old-fashioned roadhouses where, where...
Just say it, roast beef rolls. Just say roast beef rolls. That's what you want to say, innit?
Roast beef, exactly right. The good old roadhouse where you weren't a number.
Yeah.
Because all these service stations now and stuff where you go to McDonald's, you're talking to a screen, like you're number 57 or whatever. The good old days of we're going and Marge is there cooking up a roast, and she goes, "How are you going, And are you going to have one beetroot sandwich today or two beetroot sandwiches? How are the kids?" That's all pretty much gone now.
Beetroot sandwiches? So, Jesus Christ, Anna. Just stay with the hot roast beef roll. What's the weirdest thing you've seen out of your windscreen? What?
One of the weirdest thing... I've
seen a lot. I
know. I've seen a lot. One of the weirdest thing was there was a guy. He must have been unwell or on something that he shouldn't have been on, and he had all the car doors open, and he was throwing he's standing naked on the side of the road, had all his bits of clothing, he was throwing them out onto the road, totally stark naked, and just throwing all his clothing and just doing this insane dance on the side of the road, totally stark.
I think that was the last time I saw you. You're right. Well,
Yes,
mate,
it was. Yep.
mate, the last one is: would you rather back a B double blindfolded or explain logistics to an in-law or someone who's not in the game?
Reverse a B double blindfolded backwards. It's a lot easier than trying to explain what we actually do on the road.
Well, mate, I've got an outro. I'm going to leave you on the line while I do it.
But can I just say something first before we jump into your outro?
You bet you can.
I just want to say thank you so much, Shane. You're an absolute legend. As I said before, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I tell you what, Kenny is still one of the all-time favourites in my family movies. It's up there. We've got Kenny, the Castle, and I think the girls like Moana. So I really appreciate you being
thanks,
the person that you are, and I'm really stoked to have this conversation with you. And I admire you as an actor, as a comedian, and I love your work. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing to help guys like myself out.
Mate, thank you. That's a beautiful thing to say. Well, mate, hopefully I'll catch you in a roadhouse for a hot beef roll. I know I know I can't leave the hot beef roll thing alone, but I'm clearly addicted to them. They used to have a decent one in Tarcutta a while ago. So, actually, the best hot beef rolls were Aubrey Wodonga. There was the BP on the other side. They were the best ones for a while there.
Yes,
there we go.
I've been there.
So that was Eno, wasn't it, Eno?
It was.
I like involving my guests in their outro. It's weird because normally you record these after they're gone, but I refuse to do it. A bloke with guts, grit, and a message that matters, and a ripper bloke to boot. I'm Shane Jacobson, and this has been How You're Travelling. Want to hear more? Listen to the rest of the series for more stories that hit home. And if you haven't already, check out the Healthy Heads app. It's packed with stuff to help you feel better, think clearer, and keep going. So it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Eno. Say goodbye, Eno.
Goodbye, mate. You're a bloody legend. Thank you.
So are you, mate. See you on the road, folks. If you're doing it tough, don't go it alone. TX, aka This Is a Conversation Starter, offers 8 free counselling sessions for truckies, tradies, and blue-collar workers. No cost, no GP referral, no fuss. Just call 0488 846 988. That number again, 0488 846 988. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and need support right away, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.